Enjoy live interviews and solo sessions with experts in business and health, featuring your host, Dr. Alex Rosa. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome to In Your Business with Dr. Alex, where we get all up in your business and your health. Enjoy live interviews and solo sessions with experts in business and health, featuring your host, Dr. Alex Rosa. Let's get into today's episode.
Hey, welcome to today's episode of In Your Business with Dr. Alex. We're going to be talking about insulin resistance, specifically in women over 40. So if you are a woman over 40 and you are proactive about your health and you prioritize your health and you take charge of your health, then this episode is for you, because insulin resistance, insulin is something that you should be very knowledgeable about in regards to your health and your body, when it comes to your weight, when it comes to your longevity. So we're going to talk about all of that today. We're going to get pretty in depth. So if you're watching this, share it with a friend. If you have a fellow woman that you care about her health, then share this episode with them, and go ahead and leave any comments in the chat or questions. I'll do my best to go through and answer those. I've got my notes off to the side here, so if you see me looking over yonder, that's what I'm doing, because we're going to cover a lot in this episode. So welcome. My name is Dr. Alex Rosa. I'm the founder and creator of Spice and the 90-Day Metabolic Makeover, and I'm an expert in all things intermittent fasting and metabolic health. Excuse me, my nose is itching me today. I got really bad allergies. So I teach women 40 plus how to lose fat, balance their hormones, and get it on with the lights on. And so women's health, insulin resistance, especially as we get older, and I'm 41 and we're getting over our 40s here, you know, our bodies are starting to change. And insulin resistance is something that so many people deal with. And I actually made a post about this the other day, where actually like 1 in 3 people are insulin resistant. They're pre-diabetic and don't even know it. You don't even have a clue. And, you know, there's still time when you're pre-diabetic to get that under control. But insulin resistance in general is really harmful for your health for a number of reasons. And we're going to get into that today. So I'm going to talk about insulin just to start with, just give you a basic intro to insulin. So insulin is a hormone that your body releases, and it helps to kind of unlock your cells, and it helps your cells use glucose, use sugar for them. And it's produced by your pancreas. So insulin in itself is not really a problem. And I think this is a big myth out there, and something to kind of think about in a different way. If you're familiar with insulin and insulin resistance, is insulin by itself is not a bad thing. Like, we need insulin to live. We need insulin. However, where the problem with insulin resistance arises is that our cells are no longer sensitive to it. So it's not really the insulin that's the problem, it's our cells. Our cells are not receptive to that insulin, so we cannot use the insulin, and therefore we can't bring down our blood glucose, because that's what insulin does. It helps to lower our glucose levels. Insulin does a lot of other things. I'll save that for another show, but what I'm talking about with insulin resistance right now and relating to blood sugar and all of that, that's really what happens, is that our cells are no longer sensitive to the insulin. And so that's how we end up with high levels of insulin and then high levels of glucose. And that combination is not very good. So insulin resistance is just what I talked about just now. Your insulin is not really responsive to the, or your cells are not responsive to the insulin anymore that your body is putting out. And it's a very common issue, especially in women over 40, and it can lead to further complications for our health for a number of things. And the reason why I bring it up for women over 40 specifically is because of our changing hormonal levels. So, specifically with estrogen. So, estrogen actually helps to improve insulin sensitivity. So, what happens when we start getting older? Our estrogen levels start to drop. And so, our estrogen drops, and therefore, our insulin sensitivity goes down with that, which leads to the weight gain, leads to the slower metabolism, leads to the insulin resistance. So it's all related in that. And actually, estrogen, if you have healthy levels of estrogen, that actually helps to suppress gluconeogenesis, which is the making of new sugar. Glucose is sugar, neogenesis is new, the creating of something new. So glucogenesis. So estrogen has a huge impact on that. So if we have healthy levels of estrogen, chances are our glucose levels are going to stay pretty healthy because our insulin levels are good and our cells are receptive to that insulin. So that's how the estrogen is related to that. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we go on. So, what are some causes and risk factors of insulin resistance? So, not moving around, right? A sedentary lifestyle. Diet is a huge one. So what you're eating and what you're not eating. Okay, so we want to focus on eating nutrient dense foods, high fiber foods, high volume foods. I've talked about that a lot of times. But if you're eating a lot of just regular sugar, processed food, carbohydrates, those are actually going to really contribute to insulin resistance for you because it's all diet related. Being overweight contributes greatly. And then also going back to these hormonal changes that we deal with as we get over 40 and genetic predisposition, so epigenetics. I always have said this, genes load the gun, but your lifestyle pulls the trigger. So yes, everybody in your family, everybody in your mama might have type 2 diabetes already or be pre-diabetic, overweight, a bunch of other things, high blood pressure, a lot of other things, but that doesn't mean that that's going to happen to you. Okay. We are very able to defy the odds and break the cycle around that. I'm an example of that myself. So you have the ability to do that. You might be predisposed to that, right? Genetic predisposition, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get that. You can very much have an influence on how you develop these different diseases as you age, as we get older. It don't have to be your destiny, honey, to be like that. We can do so much to change that. And that's why I'm teaching about that today. You can manage this insulin resistance. You can reverse this insulin resistance. So you don't have to become type 2 diabetic to develop diabetes, to have more and more weight gain as we age. You just don't have to accept it, right? Because that's kind of what happens, especially for women over 40. And this kind of goes into my next topic of the impact that insulin resistance has on women over 40 and why it's very relevant because of our hormonal changes and because of the estrogen and the decreasing estrogen levels and how that decreases our insulin sensitivity. And, weight gain just kind of happens, right, as we get older. And if you're sedentary, that can, add to that as well. But that doesn't mean that you're just going to get fat. Like you're just not going to get big just because you're getting older, right? And I think a lot of people just accept that. But if you are somebody who's proactive about their health and very into their health and getting better and wanting to learn more about their health, then you definitely can do something about that. And that's why I'm teaching about this today. So, weight gain is common as we get older, but it doesn't have to be the norm. It doesn't have to be the standard. And I think it's so scary. It's so fucking scary what we have become accustomed to, what we consider normal, because what we consider normal is very abnormal. Very abnormal. The type 2 diabetes, the insulin resistance, the high blood pressure, the obesity, the chronic aches and pains and inflammation. That shit's not normal, but we consider it a normal part of aging. No, it's not. It's very possible to age gracefully, to get older, but still be very active and mobile and live a really great, amazing life, even though you're getting older. So don't get into that mindset. So one other thing is that high insulin levels can actually trigger your body to make more testosterone as you get older. And this is how this is related, because again, remember I said that insulin in itself is not bad, but what happens, how we get those high levels of insulin in our blood, is because our cells are not receptive to them. Again, insulin resistance. So if we're having these high levels of insulin because of our cells not being receptive to them, then we're triggering our body to make more testosterone. And testosterone, high levels of testosterone in women, lead to facial hair, lead to acne, a lot of symptoms related to like PCOS. And that's why I always tell women, like, if you start noticing these little hairs start popping up and all of these things, they're hormonal related. Most likely testosterone and estrogen levels are in an imbalance, and you're dealing with these kinds of symptoms that you might be dealing with. And that's because of these high levels of insulin. And actually, high levels of insulin also lower some of your sex hormones. So you have sex hormone binding globulin, SHGB, SHBG. I had to think about that. So this, when you have this really dumps estrogen into your system, and that excess estrogen leads to those sore breasts, heavy periods, fibroids. A lot of women deal with that. That's a lot of that PCOS type situation as well. So those all things are related, and that's related back to a lot of insulin resistance, high levels of insulin, not because the insulin in itself is bad, but because you're no longer sensitive to that insulin anymore. So what are some health consequences of having this high insulin and this insulin resistance, right? So we talked about prediabetes, right? So prediabetes is really insulin resistance, actually. So we're going to have some type 2 diabetes, which we don't want to go there, right? We don't want to be type 2 diabetic. Cardiovascular disease, guys. Cardiovascular disease is the number one killer of women over 40. Absolutely. That's the number one thing that takes out women is cardiovascular disease, heart attack, stroke, your health of your arteries. I mean, your blood pressure, all of that. That shit will kill you. That's what kills us over 40 is heart disease and all of that. So that's why this is so important to get this insulin resistance under control to reverse it. PCOS is another one, certain types of cancer, and weight gain. These are all consequences of insulin resistance. So how can we manage, reverse our insulin resistance? Well, some things that you can do are, like I talked about earlier, food, your diet. What are you eating? We want to focus on nutrient dense, whole foods, one ingredient foods, nothing that comes from a box, a bag, a window, right? We want to eat as many whole, real foods as we can. Fiber, lots of fiber. High volume foods. So high volume foods are foods that are high in fiber, water, and that have a lot of volume, right? It's a lot of volume for little amount of calories. So those are really great foods, especially when you're fasting. And actually fasting is, intermittent fasting is one of the best things that you can do to help to fight this insulin resistance. You want to focus on activity level, especially strength training, weight training, lifting weights. You absolutely want to have that as part of your exercise routine. And if you're already doing it, you want to up it. You can't overdo it when it comes to that, especially as we get over 40. Building our muscle is so incredibly important. Our skeletal muscle, our lean muscle mass, honey, that is the greatest medicine that is out there for you when it comes to your health, your overall health, to your hormones, to your immunity, to how you manage your blood sugar levels in your body, inflammation. I mean, it helps with everything, building that muscle. So add that to your routine. And if you're not already, and if you are, more for sure with that. We want to look at stress levels. So you want to look at your lifestyle. And we're going to talk more about lifestyle in the next part here, but you want to look at your stress levels in your life. And, I've talked about cortisol before, and cortisol in itself is not bad. Cortisol keeps your ass alive. It keeps you alive. We need levels of cortisol. However, when you have chronically high levels of cortisol, that's where it becomes a problem. That's where it's creating that chronic inflammation, doing a lot of damage. That's where we want to get rid of that. So stress, We all got stress. It's just how are you dealing with it? Okay. We can look at some specific dietary supplements, but we always want to use food as medicine first, right? Food as medicine. That's our number one line of defense. And then we supplement. We can supplement orally, or we can look at IV hydration. I love IV hydration. Get straight into that bloodstream, get straight into those cells. IV hydration is another one. And again, I already talked about intermittent fasting. I can't talk about that enough. Intermittent fasting is great for helping to reverse type 2 diabetes, to reversing insulin resistance. It just makes your body sensitive again. Again, that's the problem with the insulin resistance. Your body's not sensitive to the insulin that your body is pumping out. So we need to increase that sensitivity again. Intermittent fasting is fantastic for that. And we want to go see our healthcare provider. You want to have at least an annual check, get some annual blood work, know where you stand. And if you're proactive about your health, you're probably already doing that. So looking at the labs that you do have, you want to make sure you're getting fasting insulin level. I made a video about that not too long ago. Fasting insulin levels. You want to make sure that you're getting that, because that will tell you way ahead of time, way before you became insulin resistant. This will tell you that, because we'll be able to see which direction it's trending. And if it's starting to become a little bit more elevated, then you know you're headed in the wrong direction. And then you can make some changes before you become insulin resistant and then develop type 2 diabetes. So we want to catch that ahead of time. And just looking at, I always run micronutrient testing with what I do with my patients. That's another thing that you can specifically ask for. Most traditional doctors, traditional healthcare is not going to do some micronutrient testing on you. However, the information that you can gain from micronutrient testing is so very valuable, because that can really help to guide your supplementation that you're doing and really up level your game when it comes to that, to really optimize your health and fill in those gaps. So I love doing micronutrient testing, doing some food allergy intolerance testing. Those are always important as well, because sometimes we might be allergic or sensitive to things that we don't realize. We kind of just accept, again, going back to the normal and abnormal. Sometimes we just accept feeling a certain type of way, even though it's uncomfortable, we just become accustomed to it. And even though that's our body talking to us, always listening to your body is so important. So your body's talking to you, but you're not listening, and it's telling you that something is just not agreeing with you. And many times we can be sensitive or intolerant to something that we're eating, and that's in turn is causing a lot of inflammation. That's how your body's talking to you. So your body's becoming inflamed, and that over time, over years and years, that's what can lead to a lot of problems for you in the health department. So really looking at some micronutrient testing, some sensitivity testing, introducing that IV hydration therapy to fill in those gaps. That's how you elevate, honey. That is how you elevate. And then looking at lifestyle. So yeah, I gave you all this great information about your insulin and insulin sensitivity and resistance and what you should eat and how you should work out and all that good stuff. But you got to make it part of your lifestyle. You got to make it a part of your day-to-day of how you live your life. If you want to have that long, healthy, active, sexy, fun life that you want to go out there and make an impact and influence and do all those things, well, you got to stick around. So we got to make sure that we're doing this and making it a lifestyle, something that you do automatically without thinking. It becomes part of who you are. And maybe you're already kind of doing some of these things, but it's the consistency. Are we doing it on a consistent basis? Are we continuing to be that person all the time? Are we jumping in and out? Are we into it for a while and then we kind of get out of it? We into it, we kind of get out of it. We want to maintain that lifestyle for the long term. So that will go such a long way to making it a part of your lifestyle, to see those results, to be able to manage and reverse all of this. So be proactive, take charge of your health, empower yourself about your health. That's why I make these videos, so you can learn more about it. And yeah, insulin resistance in women over 40, it's a very real, very dangerous thing. Again, cardiovascular disease is the number one killer of women over 40. That is what is taking us out. And insulin resistance is a huge driver in impact on our cardiovascular health. The inflammation, the high blood glucose levels, the obesity, it's strain on our heart, strains on our arteries. Honey, we got to get that shit under control. And even if you're already doing it, there's ways that we can tweak it a little bit more that I discussed in this video today, doing the fasting, doing the IV hydration, getting the micronutrient testing. Those are all things that you can really do to up level your health game when it comes to this. And maybe some areas that you really haven't done some work in or haven't really known about, because again, most traditional healthcare is not going to tell you about this stuff because it keeps you well, it gets you healthy, it gets you off of those meds, right? Our healthcare system's not really set up for that now, unfortunately. But again, that's why I make these videos so you can be more proactive about it and really knowledgeable about your body and what's happening in it and what you can do to up level your health game to optimize your health. And these are just some of the ways. So if you learned something new, definitely drop it in the chat. I'd love to learn more about what you learned in this episode today. If you have specific questions, definitely reach out to me. If you want to become a patient and work specifically with me one-on-one, you want to elevate your health, honey, book a call with me today. I have the link in the description, or I can leave it in the chat, or honey, you can just find me on all of my platforms and just reach out to me directly is the best way. If you have any questions about what I talked about today, or if you want me to elaborate on anything, I'll make a video about it. You know, I will. So these are just some of the things, but yeah, definitely reach out to me. You want to up level your health, elevate your health, and really take things to the next level, because you're probably already doing the things, but just not really seeing the results that you want to see. Well, let's fix that. Okay. All right, guys. Again, that is today's episode. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. Yeah, it was a lot, but all right, guys. And I want to just give a quick shout out to Juan. Yes, speak on it, Doc. Yes, honey. Genes load the gun, but your lifestyle pulls the trigger. Exactly. It 100% does. It doesn't have to be your destiny. Yep, muscle equals longevity and graceful aging. It absolutely does. And I think women should not be afraid of that. And sometimes women are afraid of building that muscle and lifting weights, and they think they're going to look like a bodybuilder and all this shit. No, unless you're specifically working with somebody that's going to get you to that, then that's what'll happen. But that's a lot of work to get that way. You're not going to get that from me. So if you're looking to try to be a bodybuilder with like 10% body fat, no, that's not me. I enjoy curves. I enjoy body. I enjoy all of that. So if you work with me, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get body, you can get booty, you can get all the curves, the sexiness, all of that. That's what I love personally. And that's what, that's, that's a whole nother show. That is a whole nother show right there. But yes, you absolutely need muscle for longevity, graceful aging. You love yourself. You want to be around. You want to make an impact. You want to influence. You want to do things. You want to be around for your family, for your business, for you. You want to show for you. This is one of the best ways that you can do it. And knowing about insulin resistance and reversing it, getting on top of it, getting ahead of it, that is the name of the game. All right, guys, that is my video for today. Like I always say, for a balanced life, just add spice. I'll see you in the next video.